What is the longest military convoy ever? And what are some of the strangest roads ever built for the sole purpose of moving armies? The longest military convoy ever recorded was an astounding 6,200 kilometers or 3,800 miles long. This was the 1941 German advance through the USSR during World War II. The German objective was to capture Moscow, and they almost made it. The Red Army almost lost the war in this single battle. It is one of the greatest stories of all time, and you can read more about it in a book called The Forgotten Battle by a historian. But back to the convoy. At the head of the column were armored cars with Hitler's generals. Behind them were hundreds of tanks and artillery. And at the very end of the column were thousands of supply trucks. These supply trucks carried everything from food and ammunition to fuel and medicine. And because the Red Army kept retreating, the Germans had to keep their supply lines open and secure. That's why there are pictures of German soldiers securing these supply lines with machine guns. Can you imagine being in charge of securing the very last truck in a 6,000 kilometers long convoy? But that was nothing compared to the Romans. During the Republic's early stages, Rome was threatened by many different enemies, but none so terrifying as the Samnites lived in central Italy, and they were fierce warriors. They fought in heavy armor, and they wielded terrifying weapons like the falcata, which was a curved sword with a long handle. So when the Samnites invaded Rome in 343 BC, the Romans were in trouble. But the Romans were able to defeat the Samnites thanks to a brilliant general named Gaius Mui, and part of his strategy involved a road. He built a road from the top of a mountain down into the Samnite camp. Then every night he would have men march down the road, pretending to be an entire army. The next morning, the Samnites would look out of their camp and see this massive Roman army, complete with all its cavalry and elephants. And because the Samnites were superstitious, they believed that Rome must be invincible. And after 3 days of seeing these fake armies, they fled. This road allowed the Romans to defeat one of their greatest enemies. And it is one of the craziest stories from ancient Rome. And if you want to hear more crazy stories from ancient Rome, stay tuned, because Rome was also attacked by an even more terrifying enemy, an enemy that came from the sea.